The Keth Dominion had never tasted fear, until they met a tractor. For eons, the reptilian conquerors carved empires from the weak, their bioships swallowing civilizations whole. They rode beasts of fang and fury, communed in guttural roars that shook planets, and weaponized mercy as a flaw. When they descended on the fringe colony of New Eden, it was routine. Crack the shield, harvest the tech, leave the survivors to choke on their own futility. Your Federation abandoned you, they taunted, their war cries echoing through the grain silos and hydroponic domes. And why wouldn't they believe it? The colonists were farmers, mechanics, dreamers with calloused hands and no artillery. But the Keth did not smell the engine grease, staining the overalls of the woman retrofitting a harvester's thresher into a railgun. They did not notice the way the old Marine-turned-brewer studied their saurian mounts with a veteran's calculating glare, or how the orphaned girl with a talent for sabotage memorized the rhythm of their patrols. And they certainly did not anticipate the sound, a twanging, off-key anthem broadcast from a ship held together by spit and spite, its hull plated with combine harvesters and defiance. The galaxy called them the Terran Volunteer Militia. History would call them the reason empires should fear rust. Chapter 1. The dust on New Eden had a way of clinging to everything: boots, engines, consciences. Jessa Cruz wiped sweat from her brow, her cybernetic arm whirring faintly as she tightened bolts on the grain harvester's underbelly. The machine groaned like an old man dreaming of better days, its rusted joints protesting as she worked. Beyond the hangar's open doors, the colony's fields sprawled under a bruised sky, stalks of bioengineered wheat bending in the wind. It was a quiet planet, this backwater rock, the kind of place where a woman could bury her ghosts under 6 feet of fertilizer and routine. She'd chosen New Eden for its silence. No bounty hunter guilds squawking in her ear, no creditors hunting the trail of aliases she'd burned. Just the hiss of steam from the hydroponic domes, and the occasional rattle of a stray asteroid against the atmospheric shield. And Lynn, always Lynn. The girl's laughter drifted in now from the fields where she recalibrated irrigation drones, her voice sharp and bright against the monotony. 16, stubborn, smarter than anyone in 3 systems. Jessa had found her 5 years ago, a stowaway in a grain shipment, bound for a slum port. Neither spoke of the unspoken deal between them. You don't ask about my past, I won't ask about yours. The first tremor was subtle, a vibration in the soil that made the harvester's fuel gauge shiver. Jessa froze, oil dripping from her wrench, instincts honed in 100 starport brawls flared. Too rhythmic for seismic activity, too deliberate. Lynn, she barked, already moving. The girl emerged from the wheat, overalls streaked with engine grease. Pressure leak in the get to the storm cellar, now. But the drones need, now. Jessa didn't wait to see if she obeyed. The hangar's emergency siren began its metallic wail as she sprinted to the comm shack, her augmented legs eating up the distance. Colonists stumbled from prefab homes, faces upturned. Shadows bloomed in the sky, jagged, organic shapes that stank of Keth bioships. Memories surfaced unbidden, a bounty job gone wrong on Tau Ceti V, the wet crunch of a client's skull under a Keth war club. Not here, she thought. Not again. The lead ship descended on jets of superheated methane, its hull a mottled carapace. Amplified roars shook the air, their meanings clear even without translation. Prey, submission, feast. Through her binoculars, Jessa watched Keth warriors dismount their dinosaurs. The creatures were horrors ripped from Earth's Cretaceous nightmares, their scales glistening with genetically engineered armor. One threw back its head and screamed, a sound like sheet metal tearing. They're demanding surrender, muttered Olafson, the colony's aging governor. His hands trembled as he adjusted his spectacles. Says they'll spare anyone who hands over the terraforming codes. Jessa's mouth tasted of copper. The codes could reverse engineer New Eden's atmosphere into a weapon, a planet-killer gas. The Federation had sworn the data was purged. Lies, always lies. Tell them we're deleting the files, she said. But we can't. The systems are air-gapped in the... I know where they are. She was already moving toward the armory. Colonists parting before her like wheat. Stall them. 10 minutes. The armory was a joke. 3 pulse rifles, a crate of plasma grenades older than Olofsson, but the real weapons hung in the hangar. She ran her hand along the John Deere harvester's flank, its fusion core humming. A good machine, dumb, loyal, not unlike her former self. The explosion came as she was jury-rigging the tractor beam. A biopod smashed through the hangar roof, disgorging Keth's shock troops. Jessa dove behind the harvester as plasma fire scorched the air. Her cybernetic arm sparked. A lucky shot had grazed its neural link. Pain, bright and electric, seared up her spine. Looking for these, Lynn stood in the doorway, a data crystal glowing in her palm. The Keth commander swiveled, his lizard eyes dilating. Jessa moved without thought. The wrench left her hand in a spinning arc, crunching into the Keth's nasal ridge. Lynn darted forward, a small figure swallowed by smoke, and the screams of dying machinery. They met in the chaos, the girl pressing the crystal into Jessa's palm. The storm cellars gone. They took the kids, Marisol, Chang, all of them. Jessa's vision tunneled. Somewhere the rational part of her brain noted the tactical reality hostages as leverage. But another voice, raw and primal, roared louder. She saw the harvester's controls, the modifications she'd made during long nights, the ones she'd told herself were just tinkering. Get to the silo, she growled, shoving the crystal into her tool belt. Override code Gamma 0, but do it. Alone now, Jessa climbed into the harvester's cockpit. The controls smelled of Lynn, vanilla soap and solder fumes. She closed her eyes, fingers dancing across the console. Retrofitted thrusters whined to life. Across the colony, 12 other machines answered. Combined harvesters, tillers, a brewery's fermentation vat turned into a missile battery. The comm crackled. This is Olofsson. They're demanding you by name. Cruz. How do they? Tell them I'm coming. The hangar doors blew outward. The John Deere rose on pillars of fire, its grain hold stuffed with ammonium nitrate bombs. Below, the Keth paused mid-pillage, their dinosaurs scenting the air. Jessa bared her teeth. Let them see the reckoning in her wake. The burning fields, the colonists emerging with welding torches and jury-rigged ion blades. You think the Federation abandoned us? She whispered, throttling forward. The harvester's klaxon blared, a single, sustained note that shook the bones of the world. Good. Chapter 2. The void between stars was not silent. It thrummed with the low, predatory growl of Keth bio-engines, a sound that seeped through the hull of the SS John Deere like a fever dream. Jessa Cruz leaned into the harvester's cockpit, her breath fogging the cracked view screen. Outside, the remains of a Keth scout ship drifted, its organic hull split open like a rotten fruit, spilling phosphorescent sap that crystallized in the cold. The sap caught the distant glow of New Eden's sun, a faint ember against the dark. Pretty, she thought, and hated herself for it. Beauty had no place here, not anymore. They'd been hunting in the asteroid belt for 9 days. 9 days of ambushes and retreats, of welding shut breaches in the Deere's hull, while Lynn muttered equations under her breath, her fingers dancing across a stolen Keth datapad. The girl had barely spoken since the raid, her laughter replaced by a silence that clung to the ship's corridors like smoke. Jessa watched her now through the cockpit's reflection, a ghost in grease-stained overalls, her dark hair tangled into a nest of wiring and grief. Thrusters at 40%, Lynn said, her voice flat. The last burn melted the couplings. Jessa nodded, her cybernetic arm twitching as it synced with the nav console. The limb had begun to ache, a phantom pain where flesh met machine. She'd told herself it was the cold, a lie, but necessary. Lies were the mortar holding this ragtag fleet together. We'll get them back. We'll survive. The Federation's coming. The last one tasted bitterest. A shadow eclipsed the stars. The Deere shuddered as a Keth dropship slid past, its underbelly bristling with spined tentacles that scanned the asteroids. Jessa held her breath. The cockpit reeked of burnt insulation, and the faint sour tang of fear, her own. The dropship paused, its tendrils probing a nearby rock. For a heartbeat, she saw the faces of the missing children in its mottled hull, Marisol's gap-toothed grin, Chang's perpetually raised eyebrow. Then the ship moved on, dissolving into the dark. Another minute, and it would have seen us, Lynn whispered. But it didn't. Jessa powered up the thrusters, wincing as the engine screamed. The deer lurched forward, its makeshift armor, scavenged plating from a dozen combines, scraping against ice. Plot a course to waypoint Theta. Time to reap what we've sown. The TVM's base was a gutted ore hauler, nestled in a crater's eternal shadow. Jessa docked the deer with a crunch that set her teeth on edge. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of yeast and desperation. Uncle Randy's brewery tanks now fermented a crude ethanol mix for fuel. He stood by the airlock, a gnarled oak of a man with a plasma torch in one hand and a flask in the other. The torch sparked, the flask sloshed. Cutting it close, Hellfire, he said, using the callsign she'd earned burning slaver ships to ash. His eyes, sharp under brows like storm clouds, flicked to Lynn. Girl looks half dead. She's tougher than your liver. Jessa shot back, but her chest tightened. Lynn had collapsed into a cot, the datapad still glowing in her limp hand. Randy grunted, leading her through the hauler's ribcage. Farmers turned mechanics, scrambled over missile batteries, made from cedars, their hands blackened by gunpowder and hope. Scouts hit the green thumb, he said, took out the port thrusters. We're down to 7 ships, and the bombs? Buried in the silo, like you ordered. But Cruz, he stopped, blocking her path. We can't keep losing people for maybe. She stared at his flask, where a faded sticker read World's Okayest Uncle. You got a better plan? Yeah, run. Take the kids we've got left, and what? Her voice cracked. Let the Keth turn New Eden into a gas chamber? Better than dying for dirt. The words hung between them, sharp as shrapnel. Jessa saw it then, the flicker in his eyes, the same look her old crew had, when she jettisoned their life pod to outrun a patrol. Coward, they'd screamed. Monster, she'd let them. You want out? She asked softly. Randy took a swig. Nah, just want you to admit this is suicide. She pushed past him. Then drink up. It's harvest time. The Keth dreadnought loomed over New Eden, a leviathan carved from bone and hatred. Jessa watched it through the deer's scope, her stomach churning. Its surface crawled with dinosaurs, Tyrannotidon-class mounts, their jaws wired shut with neural clamps. One turned its head, milky eyes reflecting the deer's running lights. For a moment, she swore it saw her. They're hurting us, Lynn said, her voice hollow. She'd woken screaming again last night. Don't let them take me again, she'd begged. Jessa had promised. Another lie. The comms crackled. TVM, this is Green Thumb. We're pinned at. The transmission dissolved into static. On the tactical holo, 3 friendly blips winked out. Thin their numbers, Jessa ordered. Bait and switch. The deer dove, spewing chaff from its grain chutes. A Keth fighter followed, roaring its triumph. Jessa waited until it was close enough to taste, then triggered the tractor beam. The beam, a repurposed thresher module, grabbed an asteroid, and flung it backward. The fighter disintegrated. 1 less, she muttered. 3 more incoming, Lynn warned. Hold on. The deer banked hard, artificial gravity groaning. Jessa's vision blurred. For a heartbeat, she was back on Tau Ceti V, watching a Keth warlord raise his club. Run, her crew had begged. Run. A proximity alarm yanked her back. A fighter's plasma burst scorched the hull. Jessa, Lynn screamed. I see it. She slammed the throttle, the deer's engines howling. Randy, now. From the asteroid's shadow, the brouhaha emerged. A fuel tanker turned gunship, its belly swollen with Randy's ethanol. Missiles streaked out, their warheads packed with chili powder. The Keth ship inhaled the cloud through its intake vents. It convulsed, spewing fire, and died. Tastes like home, Randy drawled over comms. Jessa allowed herself a grim smile. Then the holo flashed red. They've got Lynn's signal. A farmer shouted. What? The datapad. It's transmitting. Lynn stared at the device in horror. I couldn't. The dreadnought turned. A hangar yawned open. Vomiting fighters. Jettison it. Randy barked. No. Lynn clutched the pad to her chest. The terraforming codes. They're in here. If we destroy it. Jessa met her reflection in the view screen. The woman there was old, scarred, afraid, coward. Her crew whispered. Monster. All ships, she said. Form on me. The deer led the charge. Its hull bleeding atmosphere. Fighters swarmed. Their plasma fire painting the void green. Jessa weaved through the storm. Her hands steady. Her soul screaming. Lynn's breath, hitched beside her. Scanners show life signs in the dreadnought. The girl said. Our people, they're alive. Jessa's heart stuttered. Marisol, Chang, where? Deck 9. But Jessa, the bombs are there too. If we hit them. The comms erupted. Randy's face appeared. Bloodied but grinning. Hellfire, got an idea. You're gonna hate it. She already did. The brouhaha rammed the dreadnought first. Its fuel tanks detonating in a blaze that lit the void. The explosion tore a hole in the beast's hide. Jessa didn't hesitate. Go, go. The deer plunged into the fiery maw, its hull shrieking. The hangar was a charnel house. Keth warriors scrambled, their dinosaurs thrashing against clamps. Jessa spotted the children in a cage, their small hands clutching the bars. Lynn, get them. But the bombs. Go. Lynn fled. Jessa turned to the controls. The dreadnought's core loomed ahead, a pulsing tumor of terraforming death. She armed the deer's payload. A hand gripped her shoulder. Randy, my turn, he said, flask in hand. Like hell, you've got a kid to raise. He shoved her toward the airlock. And I've got a date with a dinosaur. She fought. He was stronger. The last thing she saw, as the airlock sealed, was Randy at the controls. Cotton Eye Joe blaring from the speakers. The Keth froze, their dinosaurs howling. At the banjo's twang. Damn right they hate it. Randy laughed. Then the deer exploded. The escape pod was cramped, reeking of sweat and tears. Lynn clutched the children, her face buried in Marisol's hair. Jessa stared at the burning dreadnought, Randy's flask in her hand. Was this worth it? The void didn't answer. Chapter 3. The escape pod was a coffin with a view. Jessa Cruz pressed her forehead to the porthole, her breath fogging the glass as the Keth dreadnought burned. Debris drifted like funeral ash, shards of the John Deere twisted dinosaur collars, the faint glint of Randy's flask tumbling end over end into the void. She caught herself reaching for it, her cybernetic arms sparking where the neural link had frayed. Stupid. The dead didn't need mementos. Lynn stirred behind her, curled around the rescued children. The girl's hands trembled even in sleep. Her fingers clawed as if still gripping the bars of her cage. Marisol whimpered, her small face streaked with dried Keth sap. Jessa turned away. The guilt was a live wire in her chest, humming louder with every labored breath from the pod's recycler. You promised. You failed. You always fail. The comms crackled. A voice, warped by static. Any survivors, militia? Respond. Jessa lunged for the console, her boots sticking to the blood-slick floor. The signal was weak, triangulating from the dreadnought's corpse. She squinted at the coordinates. Deck 9. The bombs. Lynn. She shook the girl gently, her metal fingers leaving dents in the blanket. Wake up. Lynn's eyes flew open, wild and unseeing. Don't let them. It's me. Jessa gripped her shoulders, anchoring her. I need you to listen. The dreadnought's schematics glowed on the datapad, a labyrinth of biomechanical arteries. Lynn traced a path with a grimy fingernail. The bombs, they're here, reactor adjacent, but the core's breached. If we don't stabilize, how long? 3 hours, maybe. Jessa stared at the burning Leviathan. Somewhere in its guts terraforming poison pooled, ready to flood New Eden's atmosphere. Randy died for this. She strapped on a salvaged Keth breather, its filters reeking of rancid meat. Stay with the pod. Like hell. Lynn stood, swaying. You'll get lost in 5 minutes. The girl was right. The dreadnought wasn't a ship, it was a carcass. Nice. They floated through the breach where the deer had torn its way in, tethered by a length of frayed cable. The interior was alive in the worst way, walls pulsing with bioluminescent veins, floors sticky with digestive enzymes that ate through their boots. Jessa led with Randy's plasma torch, its blue flame casting shadows that twitched like skinned animals. Lynn's breath hitched as they passed a shattered cage. They kept us there, she whispered. The dinosaurs. They watched, hungry. Jessa didn't reply. The air tasted of copper and burnt hair, a flavor that lived in her nightmares. Tau CTV, the Keth warlord's breath on her neck. Run, her crew had begged. She'd run. A groan echoed ahead. They froze. Ventral corridor, Lynn mouthed. The corridor was a cathedral of teeth, fossilized ribs arched overhead. Keth warriors encased in amber resin between them. Dead, but not. Jessa's torch reflected in their lidless eyes. She tightened her grip. The groan came again, lower now. A thud. Another. Footsteps. They ducked into a creche, its walls lined with egg sacs. Lynn gagged. The floor was littered with shards of shell, each larger than a man. Something moved in the shadows. A dinosaur, its frilled head brushing the ceiling. Jessa's pulse roared. The beast sniffed the air, milky eyes rolling. A collar glowed at its throat, spikes digging into scaled flesh. It's blind, Lynn breathed. The collar's degrading its senses. The dinosaur whimpered, a sound that shouldn't exist. Jessa's hand hovered over her pistol. The creature turned, revealing a gash along its flank, old infected. They heard it, she realized, just like they heard us. Wait, Lynn unclipped a canister from her belt. Randy's chili. The collars, they're neural disruptors. If we overload them with spice, it's a hallucinogen in high concentrations. Randy's batch is 80,000 Scovilles. Jessa stared at the flask. Last thing he gave me. She unscrewed the cap. The chilly fumes burned her eyes. How? The vents. Lynn pointed to the ceiling, where mucus dripped from porous ducts. It'll aerosolize. The dinosaur pawed the ground, chains clanking. Its breath rattled, a death rattle. Jessa climbed onto a resin-coated console, her boots slipping. The vent hissed as she emptied the flask. This'll either free them or kill us, she muttered. Same difference, Lynn said, and sparked the igniter. Meyer raced through the ducts. The dinosaur screamed first, its collar sparking. Then the ship itself howled, a chorus of guttural bellows shaking the walls. Jessa dragged Lynn into a service trench. As dinosaurs stampeded past, their collars exploding in bursts of sickly green light. A pteranodon crashed through the creche wall, its jaws finally unclamped. It paused, sniffing the air, then lunged, not at them, but at the amber-encased Keth. The warrior's resin prison shattered. So did he. They're imprinting, Lynn whispered. You fed them. They think you're Mom. Jessa grimaced. A juvenile ankylosaur nudged her leg, its clubbed tail wagging. The comms crackled. Cruz, you alive? She recognized the voice. Vargas, a farmer turned gunner. Barely. Status. Dinosaurs are helping. They're tearing through Keth lines. But the bombs, on it. They moved faster now, the ankylosaur clearing a path. Dead Keth littered the halls, their expressions frozen in betrayal. They thought they were masters, Jessa mused. But every beast bites back. The reactor chamber was a heart of rotting meat. Terraforming bombs pulsed in its ventricles, their casings etched with Federation warnings. Lynn knelt to disarm the first, her hands steady. They hybridized our tech with their biocrap. Tricky but, a clang above, Jessa spun. A Keth commander crouched on a catwalk. His armor cracked. One horn snapped off. Young, too young, he hissed, raising a bone pistol. Don't, Jessa said. His finger tightened. So did hers. The shot went wide, vaporizing a fuel line. The commander stared at his shaking hand. I didn't want this, he rasped in broken standard. Conscripted. They took my brood sister. Jessa's arm ached. Coward, her crew whispered. Monster. She lowered her gun. Run, now. The Keth fled. Lynn glared. He'll warn others. Let him. The bombs beeped. Disarmed. Jessa sagged against the wall. The ankylosaur nuzzled her hand, purring. Then the chamber shuddered. Klaxons wailed. Breach in Sector 7. Vargas yelled. The coward detonated the aux core. Lynn's datapad flashed. The whole ship's going critical. We have minutes. Jessa grabbed the last bomb. Can you remote detonate? If I can reach the transmitter. But. Go. Take the kids and go. No. I'm not leaving you. You have to. Jessa pressed Randy's flask into her hand. Someone's gotta tell the story right. Lynn screamed, but the ankylosaur dragged her away. Its loyalty stronger than her fists. Alone. Jessa faced the reactor. The core's membrane had ruptured, spewing toxins that ate her breather. She didn't bother replacing it. Let it hurt. The console sparked. An old Federation design beneath the Keth filth. She input the destruct code. The young Keth commander lay nearby, his chest scorched by the blast he'd triggered. Dying. His eyes met hers. Why spare me? She thought of Lynn, of Marisol, of Randy's laugh. Because someone should. His hand found hers, cold and scaled. The dinosaurs, they'll protect your nest. Tell your brood sister. He died mid-sentence. Jessa closed his eyes. I'll tell her. The countdown hit 0. The explosion was silent in the vacuum. Jessa floated, untethered, watching the dreadnought's spine snap. The surviving Keth ships fled, pursued by their own enraged mounts. Dino snacks. Randy would have joked. She hoped he was laughing somewhere. A shadow blotted the stars. The ankylosaur, its back studded with escape pods. Lynn's face appeared in a porthole, tear-streaked, furious, alive. Jessa smiled. Then the shockwave hit. Chapter 4. The dark tasted of burnt copper and regret. Jessa Cruz floated in it, limbs loose, her body a constellation of broken things. Somewhere beyond the ringing in her ears, a voice called. Lynn's voice, frayed at the edges, sharp with the kind of fear that leaves scars. Jessa tried to answer, but her lungs were sacks of ash. The explosion had stolen her breath, her heat, her will. Let go, the void whispered. Rest. A shadow blotted the stars. Something massive and warm clamped onto her leg, dragging her backward through the cold. Scales brushed her cheek. The ankylosaur, its hide gouged by shrapnel, purred like a damaged engine, as it hauled her toward the escape pod. Through blurred vision, Jessa saw Lynn's hands scrabbling at the airlock, the girl's mouth moving in a scream that couldn't escape the vacuum. Always saving me, Jessa thought, and then the pod swallowed her whole. The air inside reeked of antiseptic and desperation. Lynn had jury-rigged a medbay from Keth biogel packs, and a farmer's sewing kit. Jessa lay on a stretcher bolted to the floor, her cybernetic arm sparking, its neural links severed. The limb hung limp, a dead thing. Lynn hunched over her, suturing a gash across her ribs with hands that shook. Don't you dare die, the girl hissed, her tears dripping onto Jessa's chest. You don't get to leave twice. Jessa wanted to laugh, or apologize. Instead she stared at the ceiling, where a crack in the hull let in a sliver of starlight. Her body felt distant, a poorly piloted ship. She'd felt this way once before, on Tau Ceti V, fleeing the Keth as her crew's screams echoed over the comms. Coward, they'd called her. Monster. The arms fried, Lynn said, slicing through burnt wiring. I need to detach it. Jessa nodded. The motion sent a shard of pain through her skull. Lynn hesitated, her gaze flicking to the children huddled in the corner. Marisol, Cheng, the others, their eyes wide and ancient. Do it, Jessa croaked. The girl cut the last neural cable. The arm clattered to the floor. Jessa expected relief. She felt lighter, yes, but also, less. A limb she'd earned in blood, shed in blood. Poetic, Randy would have said. The pod shuddered. On the cracked view screen, New Eden bloomed, a green and brown marble swarmed by Keth retreaters. The dinosaurs had followed, their ships now flanking the TVM's ragtag fleet. A Rex-class mount, latched onto a Keth frigate, ripping its engines out with surgical fury. They're hurting them, Lynn murmured. Like we did with the harvesters. Jessa's laugh turned into a cough. Tell Vargas to broadcast surrender turn. They'll never. On our frequency. The dinosaurs, they'll hear it too. The Keth command ship was a scarred claw of bone drifting over New Eden's northern hemisphere. Jessa boarded it with 2 pulse pistols, no arm, and a dinosaur at her back. The ankylosaur's claws clicked against the organic decking, a metronome of threat. Keth warriors lined the corridor, their weapons raised but trembling. The air stank of musk and fear. Their warlord waited in a chamber ribbed with fossilized spines. He was old, his scales cracked like desert mud, one eye milky from a wound that never healed. Jessa recognized him, the same warlord from Tau Ceti V. His remaining eye narrowed. You, he growled in guttural standard. The runaway. She holstered her pistols. The reckoning. Behind her, the ankylosaur rumbled. Across the fleet, dinosaurs echoed the sound, a seismic warning. The warlord's tail lashed. You steal our beasts, our honor. You stole children. Jessa stepped closer. The ankylosaur mirrored her, its clubbed tail rising. Your beasts chose us. Now choose. Surrender, and live, or die with your honor. Silence pooled, thick and heavy. Somewhere, a conscript dropped his weapon. The warlord hissed, mandibles flaring. A roar split the air. The young Keth commander from the dreadnought limped in, his scales still smeared with reactor soot. He spoke in rapid-fire clicks and growls, gesturing at Jessa. The warlord recoiled. He says you spared him, the warlord muttered. Weakness, mercy, Jessa said. The warlord stared at the ankylosaur, at his own trembling warriors. We yield. The soil of New Eden felt like absolution. Jessa knelt in it, her knees sinking into the loam, her face upturned to the sun. The colonists had returned, their homes half rebuilt, their fields studded with salvaged Keth tech. Dinosaurs lumbered at the tree line, their collars replaced with TVM-engineered tags. A juvenile triceratops-nosed Marisol swing set, its frill quivering with delight. Lynn found her there, at the edge of the graveyard. The girl carried a crate of tools, her gait still favoring her left side. She didn't speak, they never did. Here, the dead needed silence. Randy's grave was a simple marker, world's okayest uncle. No body, just his flask, buried empty. Jessa pressed her palm to the dirt. You were right, it was suicide, but so is living. He'd hate this, Lynn said, all the mushy crap. He'd love the dinosaurs though. Yeah. Lynn knelt beside her. The Federation's here. Jessa stiffened. On the horizon a sleek cruiser descended, its hull gleaming like a knife. The envoy wore a crisp black uniform, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He met Jessa in the hangar, now crowded with TVM ships and snoozing dinosaurs. The ankylosaur trailed her, growling softly. Admiral Cruz, the envoy said. Or should I say Hellfire? The stories are vivid. What do you want? To offer you a commission. The Federation could use your talent, your militia. He gestured to the farmers welding Keth scrap to a combine. This isn't a navy. It's a joke. Jessa flexed her missing arm's phantom nerve. We did all right. Against the Keth? Perhaps. But there are worse things out there. He leaned closer. Join us, or wait for them to find you. She watched Lynn across the hangar, the girl teaching Cheng how to rewire a thruster. The sun caught her hair, turning it molten. My answer's no. The envoy sighed. Pity. As his ship lifted off, Jessa slipped a hand into her pocket. Randy's second flask, engraved for emergencies. She took a swig. The chili burned. Familiar. Night fell, thick with stars. Jessa stood on the SS John Deere II's hull, her boots magnetized to the plating. The Milky Way sprawled above, indifferent. Below New Eden slept. A clang echoed behind her. Lynn climbed up, breath fogging in the cold. You should rest, Jessa said. So should you. They stood in silence, the girl's shoulder brushing her side. I kept it, Lynn said.
holding up Jessa's detached cybernetic arm. Thought you might. I don't know. Want a reminder? Jessa took it. The metal was cold, its edges jagged. It's just a tool, liar. Lynn paused. You gonna replace it? Maybe, or maybe. She let the arm drop, watching it vanish into the dark. Maybe I'll leave room for something better. The ankylosaur roared from the fields, answered by a chorus of bellows. Somewhere in the black, a ship winked, debris, or a signal. Jessa didn't care. They stayed until dawn. Matt epilogue. The Unbroken. The salvage crew found the wreck 3 cycles later, drifting near the asteroid belt. Its beacon was fried, its hull pocked with bite marks, inside wedged between a keg of chili and a gutted Keth console. A man stirred. Took you long enough, Randy croaked, sipping from a flask duct taped to his hand. The crew gaped. You're supposed to be dead. Yeah. Tell Cruz she owes me a beer. He limped to the view screen, watching New Eden's star glitter. Somewhere, dinosaurs bellowed. A tag girl. He smirked and toasted the light.